Hey, what's up, everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. It is that time of the month, time to talk about my favorite albums that were released July 2024. So I've heard a lot of chatter on the internet that this summer doesn't have a ton of great metal releases. I'm here to tell you that I don't agree with that at all. I actually had a really hard time narrowing this down to only 20 albums. There's a few other albums I could have thrown in here as well. Limiting it to 20 is just because I don't want to talk for an hour here. I got to draw the line somewhere, but there's been a ton of good new albums that have just dropped this last month, and I'm going to tell you about my favorite ones. As usual, about half my list is black metal. That's just how it goes. It's mostly what I listen to, but I got a lot of other stuff in here too, from thrash to death metal to doom to power to traditional heavy metal. A little bit of everything in here. But without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it, tell you about my favorite albums that have made a strong impression on me this month. And as usual, I want to get your picks down below. Let me know which ones I've missed, which albums I should go check out, and let me know what you thought of these albums as well. So here we go. Kicking it off, I'm going with Mayhemic and their new album, Toba. This is actually the debut full-length from this band. This is some black thrash from Chile. This is just like fiery and hateful, aggressive blackened thrash metal. It's just got that old school blackened charm that I love. It's almost unhinged in its delivery, but it's just a ton of fun, and especially for a debut album. Came out of the gates firing here. Really solid black thrash album that you should go listen to. Up next, I'm going to go with some death metal with Crown of Anguish and their debut album, Stalker at the Midian Gate. So these guys are from the UK, and this album is just crushing, full of absolutely great riffs. This is just a solid death metal release. It's got more of the old school death metal vibe. The old school variety is more what I tend to listen to when it comes to death metal. And yeah, this one just has that old school vibe and riff styles that I really like. Go check out Crown of Anguish if you are unfamiliar with them. Up next, I'm going to go with some hometown content from up here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, with Cell and the new album Shattering, the Rapture of the Primordial Abyss. This is a band that I've seen live a handful of times. This is like cosmic black metal, but when I say that, they also bring in a ton of different influences. While they're rooted in black metal, they've got some thrashy elements, some death metal elements, like you name it, and you could probably pick out some riffs that would not necessarily just be a black metal riff. But this album is just full of great riffs. The songs are well constructed. All in all, a very solid release. Go check out Cell if you have not. Up next, going with Forgotten Tomb and their new album, Nightfloating. So this is a pretty legendary Italian band. It started out more on the like depressive black metal side of things. These days, while it's still got some roots in that, they're bringing in more of a doom influence as well, maybe even some gothic elements. I will say this is definitely not as like depressive as their earlier works, for sure. Like, if you've never heard this band before, go check out some of their earlier material. Like Springtime Depression is an all-time classic in the depressive black metal genre. I will say this one maybe doesn't hit quite as hard as that, but nonetheless, this is still a very good black metal album. Still strongly recommend you go check it out, but go listen to their early stuff for sure. Up next, let's switch it up completely from that and go with Powerwolf with their new album, Wake Up the Wicked. So this is some German power metal. When I say that, this band has always and still brings in almost like a pop tendency with like how catchy their choruses are. This album is very predictable. It's not going to do anything that's going to surprise you at this point in their career, but it's a ton of fun. It's super catchy. Like, yeah, it is predictable, but it is still enjoyable. I will say this is a band I've never really taken too seriously. I don't really spend too much time listening to their albums, but every time I listen to them, it is fun. It does put a smile on my face. It is good, so maybe I need to spend more time with them, but nonetheless, it's just a solid, catchy, fun album. Take it for what it is. But yeah, if that's your kind of thing, I'm sure you will enjoy this album. Up next, I'm going with Alburnum and their album, The Withered Roots of Reality. So this is some atmospheric, folky black metal from the Netherlands. I actually talked about their debut on this channel a couple years ago. At the time, I thought it was a full length, but I guess now it's classified as an EP. So this is technically their full length debut now, and this band just shows a lot of promise. I still don't think they necessarily delivered on everything that they can, but that will come as the band matures. But this is still a very enjoyable black metal album with those folky touches, and I always love this kind of black metal that brings in the folkiness, especially just like from their heritage and the culture from the like area or region that they're in, and they do that really well here. Like I said, it shows a lot of potential. I think there's still room for growth, but nonetheless, go check out their earlier EP and go check out this one. Really enjoyable stuff. Up next, I'm going with Scald and the new album Ancient Doom Metal. So this is some epic doom metal from Russia. If you are unfamiliar with this project, I don't blame you. They did put out one album back in 1997 that I consider to be an all-time classic in the epic doom genre, but it is pretty still underground and unknown. That album was called Will of Gods, is a great power. Like I said, all-time classic, but after they recorded that album, their vocalist, who is awesome, he sadly passed away. He was in a train accident, so they're kind of halted their band activities, but this is actually their first new album in 27 years. That's a pretty long time. They have tried to capture the vibe from that earlier album, and they do it pretty well. Obviously, bringing in a new vocalist doesn't quite have the same epicness, but he still does a very good job. I don't want to knock the vocalist. It's just really hard to live up to the epicness that was the previous album. So I will say I enjoy this album, but mostly what it did was just remind me to go back and listen to the classic album. So I've been listening to the old one more than the new one in the last week or so, just because that's just what it triggered in my mind. I'm like, I haven't listened to this in a while. Let's go listen to it. And I still absolutely love the earlier album, but go check out the new one as well. It's still a solid slab of epic doom. Up next, let's go with some more Canadian content with Wormwitch with their self-titled album. So this is some melodic black metal. This band, when they started out, definitely had way more of like a crusty punk injection into their sound. There's still hints of that here and there, but this is more just aggressive black metal in your face. This is a banger of an album. I honestly just haven't spent enough time with it yet. This one could easily rise up on my list. Haven't spent enough time with it, but my first impressions of this are very strong. This is just front to back a ripper of an album. Absolutely love this style of black metal, and they accomplish it with a solid release. Go check out Wormwitch if you haven't. Listen to the new one, but also go check out the previous albums as well. Up next, sticking with black metal, going with Seth and the new album La France des Maudits. So this is a classic French black metal band. Their previous album from 2021 really hit me hard. That made my year-end list. I absolutely loved it. I will say, while I'm enjoying this new album, it hasn't quite struck the same chord with me as the previous one. It's not hitting me as hard or making as much of an impression. But all that being said, I still dig it. It's definitely still worth listening to. I just don't know if it's on the level of their best, but it's still a solid album that you should go check out. All right, let's switch up the genre once more and go with Void Witch with their album Horripulating Presence. This is another debut. This is some USA death doom. When I say USA, this sounds like a Hooded Menace record. Like the Hooded Menace vibe and similarities are undeniable here, but that's a good thing. I love Hooded Menace, so anything that sounds somewhat like that, I'm going to be into. And this is another one that I've really got to spend some more time with. They are showing immense potential here. This is just overall a really solid album. It's crushing, it's heavy, it's everything you want in a Death Doom album. It's got that suffocating atmosphere and just, really crushing riffs. A solid release. Go check out Void Witch. All right, that was 10 albums. Let's get into 10 more. Here's my top 10, my absolute favorites that came out this month. I'll give you a sec to try to guess while I take a sip of water, because all this talking makes my throat a little sore. All right. Kicking it off in 10th, I am going with ColdCell and their new album, Age of Unreason. This is some black metal from Switzerland. I was just in Switzerland, so that's kind of fun to now talk about a Swiss band. But anyways, that has nothing to do with this. Just, really great black metal that will really take you on an emotional journey. The vocals on this album are excellent. You can hear everything he is enunciating. His pronunciation is crisp and clear. The production of it lets you hear all the lyrics and what he's saying, and it just, the sense of despair and agony really seeps through the music. This album takes a lot of twists and turns and will keep you on your toes, and it's, just a harrowing journey, but it is an excellent black metal release. Strongly recommend you go check out ColdCell and their new album, Age of Unreason. Up next in 9th, I'm going with Piah Mater. Might be mispronouncing that. Piah Mater. I don't know. The new album, Under the Shadow of a Foreign Sun. This is some progressive death metal from Brazil. I will say if you're into early Opeth or old Peth, if you will, you will very much enjoy this album. I would say it's almost too similar to early Opeth that it's maybe not unique enough to stand out, because when I listen to this, it just makes me think of Opeth. But nonetheless, they do sprinkle in some of their own flair here and there to give it a little bit of uniqueness. And overall, it's just a really great progressive death metal album. I mean, I love early Opeth, so stuff that sounds like that is going to be up my alley. Yeah, go check out Piah Mater and their new album if you are unfamiliar. All right, up next, let's come back with some more black metal with Deha and the new album Averses III. This is a one-man atmospheric black metal band from Belgium. Even when I say atmospheric black metal, he's kind of always experimenting and doing different things with his sound. This album is so mournful and just emotional. It is going to pull on your heartstrings, but it's really well done. I honestly can't even keep up with Deha's releases because he's so prolific at putting out albums. It seems like every 6 months he's got a new album coming out. But honestly, I have yet to be disappointed by anything that I've ever heard that he has done, whether it's in this project or anything else. Just a very prolific musician putting out solid release after solid release, and this one is no exception. A great black metal album that you should go check out. Up next in 7th, I'm going with Servants to the Tide with their new album Where Time Will Come to Die. So this is some German epic doom. A band that you could definitely compare this to would be Atlantean Codex. Has very similar vibes and sound to that. Just epic as hell with the grand scale, grandiose like soundscape that you're looking for. It's got everything that I'm looking for in an epic doom album, with soaring vocals, long drawn out compositions, and it's just really well done. A very solid epic doom release. If anything I said sounds like it might be up your alley, go listen to Servants to the Tide. Up next in 6th, I'm going with Wraithfire, an album of Fell Peaks and Haunted Chasms. This is another one-man black metal band, this time from the UK, and this time more on the symphonic black metal side. The man behind the band is actually Tom Odell from Dworodelf, another one-man band that released an amazing album this year. So how are you going to put out 2 albums in the same year that are this good is beyond me. But yeah, as opposed to Dworodelf, where they're bringing in more of like epic folky atmosphere, this is more on the symphonic black metal side, very like ice cold black metal. Definitely some shades of Emperor and just like mid-90s Norwegian black metal. That's what the vibe that this album has going for it. And look at that album art as well. You can kind of tell what kind of music you're in store for just from looking at that. I will say, I think I prefer Dworodelf to this, but that being said, I love Dworodelf, so that's not a knock on this. This is just a very solid black metal release. If you're into that style, kind of more of a throwback style, definitely go check this one out. Really solid release. All right, now we are into the top 5, my 5 favorite albums from the month of July. In 5th, we're going to go with some power metal with Orton Ogen and the new album, The Order of Fear. So this is some more German power metal. Of course, most power metal is from Germany because that's just the best country for it. But yeah, this is a band that I've been a fan of for a long time. Their albums are very consistent. You know the style that you're in store for. You know pretty much exactly what you're getting. They're not necessarily going to pull any surprises here. It's like their style, no more, no less, but it's catchy choruses, so sing-alongable, super fun stuff. It's just a very enjoyable album that I will be returning to quite often because it's just my kind of power metal. I love these sing-alongable choruses, great riffs as well, and just all in all, a very solid Orton Ogen album, which fits in perfectly in their discography. So if you've been a fan of them before, you will not be disappointed with this one. If you've never heard them before, as good a place as any to start. Go check it out. Solid power metal release. Up next in 4th, I'm going with Ironflame and the new album Kingdom Torn Asunder. So this is some US traditional heavy metal with some like hints of US power metal in there as well. Definitely a huge Iron Maiden influence. This is technically a one-man band. I know he always brings in some other musicians to like lay down some solos, and he does have a live band. But the man behind the band got absolutely great vocals here. It kind of reminds me of Bruce Dickinson a little bit. The songwriting, some could say maybe it's a little simplistic, but I don't care. These songs are so catchy, and this is just fist-pumping, head-banging heavy metal that you will be singing along to. Like, if I was going to describe this album in 2 words, I would just say, fuck yes, because that is the kind of music that it is. You put it on at a party, you'll be chugging some beers, raising your fist in the air, and singing along. It's just full of metal anthems, and it is so much fun. Like every other Ironflame release, solid band. This is their 5th album. Go check out their whole discography. But yeah, another solid release in a stellar discography. Up next in 3rd, I'm going with my favorite death metal album of the month, and that is Laceration with their album I Erode. This is some USA old school death metal with some thrash in there as well. Death thrash, you could call it, from the Bay Area. It's just got the right amount of thrash mixed in with the death metal, and this is just old school death metal the way I absolutely love it. An absolute riff fest here. I would say this would be for fans of bands like Skeletal Remains. I would put this on par with the Skeletal Remains album from this year as a couple of my favorite like old school death metal albums that have been released this year. It is just, this one is just solid. It just great songs that are going to stick in your head. You're going to be playing air guitar, headbanging along. The drumming on this album is absolutely sick as well. Solid death metal release. Can't recommend this one enough. Laceration. Give it a listen. You will not regret it. All right, that leaves 2 more, and they're both black metal albums. Big surprise, hey? On Hammerheart Metal Reviews, we're always talking about black metal, and that's what we got in store for the top 2 albums here. In 2nd place, I'm going with Akhlys and their new album, House of the Black Geminus. So this is some US black metal. This band has been killing it for the last few years. This is some nightmarish soundscape style black metal. It's just going to suffocate you and terrify you with its atmosphere. Really one of the best in this specific style of black metal at just creating these nightmarish soundscapes. The album that introduced me to this band was The Dreaming Eye, which was their sophomore album. Their debut is great as well, but The Dreaming Eye is where I really started diving into this band, and then the follow-up, Melano, was just as terrifying, if not more, and really just keep on building on those blocks, and this one is no exception. Really bringing in almost an industrial influence in spots this time around as well. I mean, those elements were there in the past too. It's not overdone, so I'm not a huge industrial guy. It's just not my cup of tea always, but it works here because it's not too overdone, and it's still mostly focused on the black metal, but bringing in those different elements just helps to shape the overall sound. And yeah, overall, just a very, very good black metal album. One that you will most likely see on my year-end list. The only question is, how high? But that leaves one more that I liked even more. The album that I have listened to the most this month is some more Canadian content, and that is Liminal Shroud with Visions of Collapse. This is some Canadian atmospheric black metal. I absolutely loved their previous album. I actually did a full review of that back, I can't remember what year it was, a couple years ago. Their previous album, I adored that album, and I can honestly say I think this album is even better. They keep building upon what they have done before and just releasing better album after better album, and it is just insanely good. The songwriting on this album is stellar. Another album where the drumming is absolutely insane, and these are just sprawling long songs that really pull on your emotions. There are some clean vocals and acoustics thrown in there, but not too much. It's not too overdone. It's still mostly aggressive black metal here with those atmospheric touches, and I just absolutely love this album. It was, well, I was going to say it was a clear-cut choice for my favorite. No, it was pretty close with Akhlys as well. Those could even swap over time, but I absolutely love this Liminal Shroud album. That's why I'm putting in number 1. It's the album I've listened to by far the most this month, and yeah, it's my favorite for July. So let me know your picks down below. Let me know what your favorites of the month were. Wow, I can't even talk. But also, yeah, I'm always looking for more recommendations. So give me your picks. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got some new stuff to go check out because of this. And until next time, Hammerheart Metal Reviews out.